Welcome. Welcome to the Daughters of Utah Pioneers and Pioneer Memorial Museum. We're so pleased to have you join us here. This is a special occasion. We haven't had very many book signings, but I'm not sure. Yep, there it is. Now let's get it out of my way. I've never been accused of being soft-spoken, so I don't used to using these. But my name is Maurine Smith, and I represent about 20,000 women in our organization. Our organization is all over the United States and Alberta, Canada. So we are not associated with the church. We're not supported in any way by the church. We are a very independent organization, and we plan on staying that way. It's maybe that's just a little bit of a connection here. We're very independent. About 99% of our members are members of the church, but this is one place where we assert our own individuality. This building has been here since 1950. It was first built for this purpose as a museum. For the many, this is bothering me. For the many histories, artifacts, and photographs that the daughters had been collecting since 1897. Immediately after the Jubilee, the 50-year anniversary of entering into the valley. And during that anniversary, they called it the Jubilee year, 50 years, they had collected so many artifacts. They sent out to all of the people throughout the territory of Deseret, to bring back to Salt Lake any artifacts that they had that was brought into the valley by those pioneers. And so they built a special pavilion to display all of these things in. And they had a marvelous celebration for 2 weeks. They had parades. Most every day had a parade. They had dances, they had banquets, they had everything going on for 2 whole weeks. I mean, we think we've got a celebration for the 24th of July. They knew how to celebrate. And they did in big style. After it was all over, then everybody went home and went back to their own business. And what do we do with all these artifacts that was brought to town? Not everybody wanted to take them back home. And so Annie Taylor Hyde, who was the daughter of John Taylor, who was the president of the church at that time, says, we need to do something more than just throw them away. They tell stories. And so with her and some of her friends, they started collecting these, and they found different places to hide these, to keep them in storage until they had a place to display them. And then in 1901, she gathered 40 of her closest friends to her home, and she decided that that was the beginning of an organization to hang on to this heritage, these stories, this beginning of this amazing place. And so that's when she started the Daughters of Utah Pioneers organization. She gave this 40 women the admonition to go out to where they came from and find 10 more ladies and organize them into what we call a camp. And then from there it spread out. So we required to organize the new camp, at least 10 ladies to start a new camp. Now we have in the neighborhood of 1,000 camps, 200 companies. A company is a geographic area under which several of these camps are organized. So the idea being patterned after the pioneer trek, as the companies came along the trail, they were organized in camps. One camp was 10 people in a tent, and then so many tents or camps were in the company. And sometimes there was a company of 50 or a company of 100. And some of those wagon trains were 400 and 500 people in the wagon train. And so that's what we patterned our organization after. Their idea being that eventually they wanted to have a place, a building of their own, that they could display all of these artifacts in, and many more, a place to catalog and keep track of all of these histories and all of these beautiful pictures to hang on the walls. It took them 50 years to get it accomplished. This building was built in 1950 and dedicated then. It was under the direction of the daughters. There was a nice, pretty good donation from the state and also from the church. And they had this building built. And then Kate Carter was then the president of Daughters. And she immediately turned it over to the state, deeded it to the state after she spent all these years helping to raise the funds. And then we lease it back from the state for $1 a year. The state gets to take care of it and maintain it. And they just, 3-4 years ago, did a complete remodel, update. It hadn't been updated since it was built. So we had an amazing array of extension cords that facilitated the computers that we now had. And so this renovation was very necessary. As you go through this, we only have 6 floors for you to explore. And so it takes more than a half hour to go through it. This room is one that I particularly like because it shows some of the very special paintings that you'll see. This one behind me is one by Wegland. You recognize that artist's name. And his is also in the back here by of the Mormon Battalion. I'm sure the Mormon Battalion would love to have looked like that as they were coming west. But at least that's probably the artist's rendition, his mind's eye of it. The building itself, I didn't mention, is somewhat of a replica of the old Pioneer Theater. Now this was the Pioneer Theater that was built downtown. I think it was on 2nd South and State Street. And it was the best, most noted theater west of Mississippi. It was an extraordinary place for its time. And all of the big stars, the Barrymores, for instance, were ones that loved to come west to come and perform in the Pioneer or in the Utah Mormon Theater. But when it became a point to where it was becoming quite decrepit, and I think it was Heber J. Grant who decided that it was not, the theater was going to the docks, and it was not, the troops, the traveling troops coming through were not showing the kind of plays that he thought was appropriate for this Mormon community, and so they could tear it down. The daughters tried their best to save it, but they couldn't afford to rebuild it, so it was torn down. They managed to save a few items from it, one of it being the proscenium curtain that was the front curtain of the stage, and that's hanging out here, you noticed as you came in. That great big painting that is hanging up on the wall. That had to be restored completely when this building was finally built, because they said they could see the actors through the curtain. They hardly needed to raise it. In this room, these notable paintings, this one back here on the back wall is by C.C.A. Christensen, and that's his rendition of Greeting the New Saints into the Valley. These 2 paintings on the east wall. The back one is Amasa Lyman and his wife and child. You'll notice that it looks like they're wearing mittens. That's because that was painted in Nauvoo and were not quite finished when they were abruptly invited to leave town. This one here, do you recognize who that is?
That's Brigham.
Thank you, Brigham. Yes, that is Brigham Young. And that's what he looked like, they say, when in Nauvoo. That painting was supposed to have been hung in the Nauvoo temple. This too was immediately taken down and folded up along with Amsel Lyman, and folded up and brought in the wagon come west. These two were not hung again until this building was built, so at least another 50 years later. This one, I don't know if you can see with the sun shining on it, of the Nauvoo Temple, was one of the earliest, I'm told it was the earliest painting of the original Nauvoo Temple. This beautiful stained glass window, that was made for the building as a tribute to the women of the pioneers that came on the pioneer treks. That was made by, under the direction of Fairbanks, Anton Fairbanks. And that was dedicated as a tribute to the pioneer women. And so that's just a few of the things here. Now there are many more things, marvelous stories. Everything that is in this building has been donated. We are definitely a non-profit organization. So we'll take anything that belonged to those pioneer period. That's 1847 to 1869, and the pioneers of that time. Nothing outside of that period. So we still are receiving donations. Just we received a wonderful pump organ out here that they had completely refurbished when they gave it to us so that we could use it. And I'm just thrilled with that one. Then we have another set of furniture that came in just a couple of weeks ago. Yes, it's getting very difficult to find places to put more things. We have also, not just this building, but we have 114 satellite museums and collections throughout the state of Utah, Idaho, a couple in Wyoming, and a little bit in Nevada. So our daughters have been doing, I think, an outstanding job of collecting and preserving the history of these wonderful people that came and started this Commonwealth. We have a unique history, one that is not shared by anybody else. These people came with nothing, but they came with a vision of what they were going to build, and build it they did. So I invite you back another time when you have more time to browse. We also have a collection of histories of about 50,000 manuscript histories. And if you find your ancestors amongst that collection, you can purchase a copy of what we have. We also have a marvelous collection of photographs, and we make those available to you. So please come back and visit us another day. Let this be just a tiny taste, but know that we are here, and hurry back. So I will turn the time over to Brad, and know that you're very welcome, and I'll be pleased to meet you another day. Thank you.